It's probably a kind of a sense of permission. Like, I can be the authority on this character. I've done time with her. I know what she's about. I'm going to take her from the director or the writer. She's mine now. I think that feeling then liberates me when it comes to actually shooting the scenes. That feeling that I'm the authority.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Katherine Waterston is an actor. She sat down with me in cyberspace to talk about the work.
Is there a typical way that you like to begin your preparation process for a role?
Yeah, I suppose there is. A kind of standard way that I like to prepare, but it's not always possible. For example, when I did Alex Ross Perry's movie Queen of Earth, I got the job 2 days before we started filming. So, you just everything. It was a very healthy exercise for me because I realized how much of my preparation is just superstition. Oh. I need to spend this number of weeks doing X, then I'll do this kind of research, or I'll choose to not think about it for a week. Whatever these things you come up with that you think make you good at your job. I think it's healthy to be tested to just find out if what is actually necessary in order to give your director what they need to put their film together. Because ultimately this is what it is, right? Like it's an offering for them and then they make sense of it in the edit, right? So, right. But I really, film sets, the stakes are so high, right? You're not going to get to shoot the scene over the course of 2 days, obviously, unless it's some like extended action thing, but those aren't the ones you lose sleep over, right? Like the big scenes, the final scene of a film, the most challenging scene, whatever you've identified to be a scary scene, I don't know. You wake up that morning, it's like a baseball tournament or something, you have that day to win that game or to deliver that scene. So the stakes are incredibly high, but there's also so many people around. There's so much going on. Something goes wrong. It's supposed to be a beautiful day. The rain clouds come in. There's a lot of chaos. So I really enjoy, if I have time, to be very quiet with the material, not talk to anybody about it, not make any decisions about what I think about it. Just read it, just chew on it, just think about it. Notice what occurs to me while I'm doing the dishes, just live with it. That I love to do. I don't know if it helped me at all. Like I said, with Alex's film, I didn't get to do that at all. And I had a great time making that film. So it's a sort of treat for me if I can have that time.
This thing keeps coming up, this kind of like taking in the script and mulling it over has come up. It's almost like it's like you're sponging it up into the unconscious and letting it do its work there. It's something I would have never ever thought about until I started talking to actors. But the more important question is, for Alex's film, when you weren't able to do that, what then changed for you? Did you spend your time differently in terms of that kind of mulling over work?
I don't know if I read this somewhere or kind of made it up, but, some people kind of roll their eyes at method actors, and I think it's all kind of for show, or I don't know where I got this. I think I read that Daniel Day-Lewis said once, like, look, if I didn't have to do this in order to be able to focus and believe this story when I'm on set, like, I wouldn't do it. This is what enables me to do that work. I think, it's just a very strange activity to kind of, maybe some actors have this, but I don't believe you can't see what's in front of you. You can't, I might be in a period film and the boom operator's wearing Air Jordans or something, and like, it's not like I can't see them in front of me. So how do you deal with it? How do you get yourself to focus on the reality of the character and silence all the other noise, which is the noise of the set, the airplane overhead, that that one voice in your head might say, oh, they're going to call cut on this because they can't use this take because the plane's flying overhead. How do you silence all that chatter in your head? And then obviously all the judgment in your head, and just be present in the scene and just be kind of grounded with your character. How do you do that? I guess what I found making Alex's film was that, like, whether you have the rituals, whether you've gone through the rituals or the preparation that helps you to focus, or not, on the day you still have a responsibility to your director to see but not see the Air Jordan, to hear but not be distracted by the airplane, to be able to be in this sort of chaotic environment but not be distracted by it. I do think in a way it just all comes down to focus. It requires a tremendous amount of focus to delve into a world in, like, sometimes 2-3 minute increments, and then be brought out of it when they call cut, and then be able to be right back in it again a few minutes later or an hour later when the rain stops or whatever, to be in that state of readiness. All I know is that it takes a tremendous amount of focus, and you've got to figure out how to focus. And what I learned from Alex's movie was that just the simple fact that you have to is one great way to be able to do something. The stakes are just that high. They're like, I didn't have the preparation I like, but I still had to do the same thing I would have done had I had the preparation. It's sort of just, I suppose, and maybe this is why older actors are just so wonderful, is because they figure out how to get there. They know they can get there. They can do it in the rain. They can do it on one foot. They can do it with a toothache. They can do it with no preparation, whatever. You just get over yourself a little bit, right? And get in the habit of getting to that, I don't know, that state of, I don't know what it is. Is it calm or focus? It's a sort of meditative state, no? But,
Yes.
That's for me. Like, I mean, I've worked with extraordinary actors who can be texting on their phone, like, constantly between takes, and I don't know what's happening. Like, I watch it and I don't know how it's possible. I don't know how they can do those leaps from their world to the character, but that can be very grounding and calming for some people.
And you don't see any difference between somebody who is doing that on their phone and another person who is spending every day trying to get themselves in a meditative state. Like, if you're objectively looking at both people that are in the movie with you or whatever.
I don't know. I mean, that's it.
I guess we can't rely on your answer.
Personally, I don't know if I can objectively.
I was just going to say that.
Appreciate performers that I work with, right? I'm too tied up in it. But I suppose an argument could be made that different wonderful things come out of these different approaches.
Yes.
Maybe a kind of bizarre specificity or something when you're just living in it. A kind of ownership maybe. But I suppose I've seen with people who really switch on and off between takes a kind of boldness, like, they called action. I'm just going to flail my way in again. And it can be very electric and alive and kind of, I don't know, for some I've noticed it's kind of, I don't know, a kind of wonderful courage, a bravery, that I see in their work. So, I mean, maybe there's something to that. Maybe there's something to that even in casting, like putting together an eclectic group that, for this role, I need somebody who's going to, fill it in. Maybe this character's a little underwritten and I can find somebody who's going to really make this work come alive. I mean, I suppose function like like a second author, right? And
Right.
really imbue this kind of ignored or underdeveloped character with
Interesting.
characteristics,
Right.
with life.
Almost like an inventive bone, an inventive and creative bone in that act rather than a performative bone. Yeah.
But then, what we see a lot is people who are kind of these days, like kind of just too small, like not really willing to take a big risk. Then maybe you might, for a role that requires something a little bit, I was going to say larger than life, but as large as life, right? Like, you live in New York, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You know how people fight in the street. Like,
Yes.
there's a temptation, a fear to stick your neck out physically as a performer, right in the street. You say, you were over there, and I came right over, and it's like massive arm gestures, right? So often I see behavior in the street, and I think no one would really dare do that in a film because it would look preposterous. But it actually is as large as life, right?
Right.
So sometimes you need someone who can do that, and they may look at their phone in between takes and then really rip it up in a wonderful way when you call action.
I heard you talk about this moment. You were in LA early in your career and realized that this whole like pilot season thing, even if
I know what you mean. There was a guy, I worked with a guy, and he said like, oh yeah, I've done a pilot every year the last 12 years. And it was at a time when they did pay actors pretty well for pilots. So you could kind of, if you were careful, not get any work for the rest of the year and get to the next pilot season. But then by then you're getting pretty hungry and you really needed to get a job. And, he was in a system where he got one like every year. And this scared you, right? Me.
Yeah. Because this is an interesting fright. It's like, because it's a fright of like, I can survive doing this, but I'm not fed artistically. I mean, is that right? Is that what sent you back to New York?
It's just how many days a week do I get to be an actor?
That's it. Yeah.
It's a sort of question of days, if it's 5 out of 365, I'll go nuts.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a big part of it. But I suppose also at that time, I thought there was something I needed to earn and a lot that I needed to learn, that I couldn't get by trying to get jobs in TV in 23, 24 years old. The parts that they were going to give, and a relatively inexperienced young woman, what I saw was like, I wasn't going to be challenged. I wouldn't learn enough about performing fast enough to satisfy, my impatient need to develop and grow as an actor.
And so I'm assuming that if you were, quote, discovered around that time when you were talking to that man, all of the learning and work that you went through in New York on the stage added up to something where that now that you are discovered, quote unquote, that you are a different artistic being than you would have been if you were discovered back then, and whatever would have happened after that. This is a really strange way to ask a question.
If I had been given some really meaty role in Hollywood back then, I wouldn't have gone back to New York probably, right? Because I would have thought, okay, this is a scarier way to learn. I'm going to be learning with a lot more people watching, but at least I have something to sink my teeth into, right? And I think, who knows I don't know. Maybe I would have been able to learn enough on my feet that I would have gotten away with it, as it were. But, I was obviously terrified when I did my first plays in New York. And I felt like, my head was on the chopping block when I was like so far downtown, like seventh stringers from the papers were coming to review us, But yeah, though it was scary for me in my little world, then it was a pretty safe place to figure out what the hell I was doing. And look, all of this to say, like, I took I took my education really seriously, but I got out of university feeling like I didn't know anything about acting.
Wow.
You know, like that I could talk about it. I got really good at talking about it, but you really don't, they shouldn't teach theory or nothing. They shouldn't bother even with like too much of the breath exercises and the movement. And I loved those classes. But really what they should do is they should hand you a part and say, figure it out. There's a funny bit in here. Can you make me laugh? Like you gotta do it to know how to do it. And nothing tells you if it's working better than an audience. And that's the other advantage of the theater. You just, you know, in film, you're always wondering, is this working? Is this working? I don't have an unbiased crowd to tell me.
And I'm assuming that failing on the stage is so important, like failing for a night in your own mind, in your own, you know, that adds up to so much in terms of learning that you can't even quantify it really.
Yeah, there's like, you know, wonderful stories that actors tell each other and directors tell us when we're starting out, like someone who asked for the sugar and got this big laugh every night, asked for the sugar and got the big laugh. And one night didn't get the big laugh and asked the director something, why didn't you get the laugh tonight? And he said, well, tonight you asked for the laugh, you didn't ask for the sugar. You know, these things like they stay with you forever, and you learn them your own greed in the moment, you know, going after a little too much and you pay the price. Yeah, it can be a harsh learning process, but
I guess that's also where you thicken your skin too, because you really need
but also
thick
it's so
skin.
much fun. So like those humiliating moments where you know, and they're humiliating not because the audience knows. The audience doesn't know there was meant to be a joke there. They're humiliating because your colleagues on stage know you asked for the laugh instead of the sugar that night. It can be embarrassing, but you know, I don't remember many of the humiliating moments. And, you know, mostly remember how much fun it is. Although my breasts did fall out of a dress in a play once the night my dad came. And it was a tiny theater.
Oh God.
And I was playing a really damaged, very, very unwell woman who had much too much to drink. And so I was falling all around in the scene, and I had to sort of lean on it. There was a sort of lip of the stage that I leaned on, and my dad was in the front row. And I leaned on the lip of the thing, and I was slurring, and I looked down, and I just was staring at my own boobs. And, you know, we never talked about it. There's this tape that we use in the theater a lot. That's really, really strong. It's for toupees. And I put it all over my dress from that night on, like glued to my body. I had like these welts from this super strong tape, so that would never happen again. So there are a few humiliating things that happen that you never forget. But in terms of like the little things as you learn as you go, like they don't haunt me.
And at least your dad's not a banker or something. You know, I mean, he understands this stuff.
Right. Yeah.
You mentioned before this idea of not wanting to share things while things are stewing, but you also said about Shasta in Inherent Vice how you didn't want to talk to Paul necessarily about like, well, the way Paul works is, according to you, is like that he'll give you the role and he wants you to he's not like hands-on with in terms of like building that. But you were talking about how you wouldn't even want to necessarily share things or ask too much. And you were talking about how you didn't even want to show Joaquin what you were going to do in the scene. And I thought that was interesting. So is that your ideal thing in every movie? This idea of like, I'm going to show you when the camera is rolling. I
don't think about it. I don't have an ideal way of working because it's a collaborative art form. I can't it's all about the group, primarily the director. It isn't to say that there aren't things I do consistently, but
let me ask it in this way.
Yeah, go ahead.
If somebody wanted to see everything, like Ethan Hawke told me a story about being on the set with Sidney Lumet, and Phil Hoffman was like did not want, Sidney Lumet wanted them to rehearse this intense scene with no one around, and Phil was like, oh my God, I got to do this right now for you, like no cameras running or anything. He's like, yeah, you do. And I guess you don't say no to Sidney Lumet, right? I mean,
right.
But that made me start to think, like, if you were working with somebody like that who wanted to see it over, like Mike Leigh or somebody, like wanting to see that over and over and over again, and is that going to diminish your work, your power there, whatever you think that power is?
Maybe it would, but what's the arrangement here? Who hired who, right? Like, it's not my film. So I could say in that context, hey, Sidney, I think if I do this right now, it's good. I might lose something. I might gain something and lose something at the same time. You might kick yourself that the thing I lose wasn't recorded, right?
Right.
But if his answer is, I don't give a damn, I work like this and this is the way I need to see it, fine. I think the important thing is you've got to trust the director way before you get on set, right? Because you're working for them. So I understand that sometimes there's a negotiation that goes on between the way an actor works and something that a director needs. And that can be very healthy. But I do think my job is to comply. It sounds so grim. But I think the arrangement is about figuring out how to bring what you can bring to this specific environment that you're in. So, no, was I a pig in shit working with Paul? Absolutely. Do I love working that way? Yeah, I really do. I really love feeling that that's safe, that trusted. I really love working with directors who plainly love actors, as Paul does, like get a kick out of them, get excited to see another take. I like working with people who that sort of respect the focus, aren't really disruptive, aren't egomaniacs needing everything to be about them, don't need their hands held, perfectly competent. I like all these things. But, if a director is very controlling, has a overwhelming vision for how something has to be, and we know about that going into it, and I want to help deliver that to them, I'm very happy to work outside my comfort zone, and I'm very comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think that's one thing that comes with time in this business. It's so scary when you first start. Like, I have to do something I've never done before, or this character feels a little bit out of my reach and I really got to stretch to get there. And that stuff feels terrible at the beginning, but you get so used to being uncomfortable that you don't feel uncomfortable being uncomfortable anymore. And yeah, I don't know, more and more I'm interested in the relationship with the directors, and interested in, I do think it comes with trusting my ability more, that it makes it much less intimidating to work with people who like to work in different ways. Like the experience with Alex, okay, I can just show up and I can still do it. Like, the tools I have will still be there for me. What I have to give will still be available to me. Yeah, so I think then it starts to get really exciting. Okay, one director likes to do 4,000 takes. One director does 2. How do I learn from this? How do I work with this? If you just want to know about preferences, like, I love loads of takes. I could do takes till the cows come home. Like, I can go way down the rabbit hole on that stuff. I would love to work with Fincher. I would love to kind of lose my mind in a scene. I've done it so many times that none of the words mean anything anymore, or I'm just so damn tired that I can barely see straight. You know, like I like digging deep. I like exploring scenes and seeing where they can go, what they mutate into, how far they go from where your original thoughts and ideas were, you know. But I loved working with Ridley, and if you're lucky, you get 2 takes. I guess it's a long way around to saying that I just really love working with people, and they're all different, and that's part of the pleasure. I mean, this time it makes it very clear that you can't do it alone at home. You know,
right.
We rely on each other to make these things happen. So yeah, I'm feeling very appreciative of my collaborators right now.
I want to talk about a movie that nobody talks about that I love. I've seen it twice, and it's going to be a film that people are going to rediscover, and they're going to be angry that they ignored it. And it's State Like Sleep. There's something about your character in that, like the relationship with Michael Shannon's character is just not, I just have never seen anything like this. The way that develops and where it gets to, and it just feels like, and I met Meredith, and I was just like, I appreciate this storytelling so much, and the way you laid this out. And it made me mad that nobody was really talking about this movie. And like I said, I think it's going to stand the test of time. So maybe somebody's listening to this right now that loved it and typed your name into the podcast thing and was hoping to hear you talk about this. God, I really believe that is going to happen. But I mean, what happens when you build something like this and the people just don't come to see it and don't appreciate it? Do you just because this happens so much, I guess it's just all right, let's move on.
I mean, I always just care for the director. I probably should care more for it never even entered my mind. It's so strange to be just talking about it now. I never really thought about I don't know what it would have meant for me if the film had been received better. I don't take it personally. I don't know. I probably should care more. I don't really care. I'm so in it for the experience.
Yeah, no.
that
It's better not to care.
Yeah, it just doesn't really occur to me, frankly. But I've only had this experience twice. First time was State Like Sleep, where I had the script for a really long time. And I just had this again with a film I made last summer that's going to be in Venice next week. I just got to live with Kate, right? The character's name was Katherine, and in State Like Sleep, I got to live with her, with it, for a really long time. And I was really working on other things, so it isn't like I was always really focused on it. But just to be able to visit it, low stakes, return to it, not have to make any kind of plan for how it should be, but just to quote Buffalo 66, just to get to spend time with it, And I think that I don't know. I guess I just don't know, right? Does that just make me feel closer to the character? Does it make a difference?
I mean, as you're saying that, I'm like, I don't even know what this was, that it felt like there was other particles in the performance that were, and that makes sense what you just said, because that means that it just had more time to stew. You just gave me a stew to eat that was stewing for all that time, and it was more rich. That's why I can't even I can't
put a finger on.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah.
And that's why I return to it, and I will return to it again.
I mean, this is the John Cazale is my favorite actor. Mm-hmm. This is what I'm after. I don't want I don't want anybody to see the strings, right? You just you want to feel it. You want to believe the person is a person.
Yeah.
And not know how they do it or how they got there, and not see them carving out moments and with the intent to, I don't know, move or manipulate people. I don't want to see the strings. That's what I like in other people's work. So that's what I strive for in my own. I find it easier if I have the script longer. It's probably a kind of a sense of permission. Like, I can be the authority on this character.
Mm-hmm.
I've done time with her.
Yeah.
I know what she's about. I'm going to take her from the director or the writer. She's mine now.
Yeah.
I think that feeling then liberates me when it comes to actually shooting the scenes. That feeling that I am the authority.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Like, I mean, I didn't lose my mind when I made that film. I knew that I was me when they called cut and everything,
Yeah.
But I felt, I mean, it's the best feeling for me that I can experience without like breaking the law, It's like, I felt the words for this stuff is so dopey, but like some kind of transition into this other person. Actors tend to be quite awkward and shy and have some element, at least some part of them is drawn to performance so that they might escape themselves, right? I've done some pretty ridiculous slapstick comedy on the stage, and I really enjoyed that and making people laugh. But there's certainly also that aspect of me that enjoys feeling sort of free from myself. It's a kind of travel. But Meredith is an amazing director. That's an important element with that film. She's a natural, and I was lucky to find her, and I was lucky that she was so good because it was really her first film. So you don't always know what you're getting into.
Right.
There wasn't a day on set that looked like this was someone making their first film. And also as a relatively physically small woman, she had total command of the set. Like, I never saw, the sort of things you sometimes see when women direct films, where there's a kind of, someone asking her if she's sure, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure you want to do it like that? Are you sure you're going to set the shot up like that?
Mm-hmm.
She just had total command. I think I do think dominance is somewhat important on a film set. You want to feel that there's leadership. It's comforting to everybody, not just the actors. And she just understood that intuitively. Without experience directing feature films, she just understood that.
The third day, I went into this not knowing anything about it. I hope people have an experience to do the same. Yeah. And but then I read about it, and like, there's going to be more to this thing. Can you just explain?
This is something that, there were a number of elements that drew me to this project, but one thing that really excited me about it was that they were trying to make the first television show that had a theatrical element, a live element. So we've had to adjust it a little bit because of COVID, but I actually think the circumstances have led us to the thing it really should be. Basically, originally what it was going to be was a live event for a couple, maybe 1,000 people on the island where we shot the show.
Oh. That
was going to sort of reveal and explain some elements that the show wasn't going to get into. Punch Drunk have been working with us throughout the series, and they are a theater company who do immersive, like really inventive, immersive theater projects. And so they were going to use their team and some of us, the lead actors in the show to do this live event. But the problem with it really was it would have been so amazing, really fun for those 1,000 or 2,000 people. I can't remember how many people it was that got a ticket and got to come to this thing. But that was still going to be mostly limited to people in England. And
Right.
Punch Drunk has fans all over the world, and they weren't going to be able to experience it. And so now what we're doing, because we can't have an audience, we're going to still do the live event. But Mark Munden, who directed the first 3 episodes, is going to film it. So we're gonna do a 12-hour performance.
Wow.
And he's gonna film the whole thing.
Wow.
Live.
Whoa.
So I mean, it's never been done before. Certainly, none of us have performed for 12 hours straight. So Jude and I are doing it, and then the rest will be the Punch Drunk performers, who are absolutely amazing and function kind of as, well, the most amazing extras I've ever worked with in the show.
Yeah.
And so we just love them, and we're really excited to really just to find out what this is.
And this is in October, right? That will be in October. Yeah.
I believe it's October 3rd.
It'll give us a chance to see the first part, which is this 3-part. Mm-hmm. And then there's a 3rd part, though, after that.
Yeah. So there's 3 episodes, a live event, and then 3 more episodes. So Punch Drunk worked closely with the writers. So they were figuring out what they could omit from the show, what they might reveal in the live event, what they could put in to the later episodes. So it's been a rather intricate process.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see. It's never been done before, and it's a really bold experiment, and it's a wonderful thing when places like HBO and have the guts to take these kinds of creative risks. So it would be really fun to see what it is. Yeah. And I haven't been on the stage in like 5 years, so it's the closest to theater I will get to do in a while, or have gotten to do in a while. So I look forward to that.
But 5 years, but this is 12 hours. It's like,
yeah, I know.
It's like eating,
really
it's like
back in.
Gorging, having
After
not eaten.
like some kind of extreme diet. Yeah, exactly. It's the binge.
That's it.
Theater binge.
There are moments in the first 3 episodes of this that aesthetically unique, and like at one point the camera is over your shoulder on Jude Law. It goes out of focus, and there's a part of your head is in focus. And the rest of the scene plays out like that. I'm like, I've never seen anything like this. It does something to the viewer, though, and I was like, I'm into this. But I wanted to just know, like, how much of that technical stuff were you privy to, or did you want to be privy to that? Did they need you to be privy to that? And how did that change things if you were?
Well, Mark has this notebook where he sort of storyboards, and so you have some sense of what the shots are. He refers to it a lot, shows it to us a lot on set, but he also loves to rehearse. So we had rehearsed for a few weeks before we started shooting. He didn't really talk about where the camera would be then, but he was already referring to his storyboard sketches then. Which is, it's really an interesting combination of someone who's very open to what the actors will bring, and really creates an environment where we all can figure out what works together in the rehearsal space. But also has like very, very strong views about how it should look. So I mean, I think for him, that's a negotiation I wasn't so privy to, of like how he works out finding the place between his very very clear and specific and bold vision for how the show should look, and simultaneously creating an environment where we feel free to play. Like he does that, but he works that out somehow on his own, like that bit I wasn't privy to, but I did know what it was going to look like. Obviously also, some people work with cameras set up quite far away with big lenses. When you're dealing with close-ups like the ones you just described, I can't not know how it'll look to a certain degree, because the camera operator is up my nostrils. You know what I mean? So I really know, like, I'm very well aware that we're doing extreme close-ups when the camera's that close to me. So yes, yeah, I did. And it was, I'd never been in a scene like that before, where they were just like really moving around so close, and I could tell that they weren't following the dialogue, or necessarily like the person you think that it should be on for this moment, which is actually quite liberating, because every take was different, and you didn't feel like, okay, here's my big moment, or any kind of pressure to deliver. Yeah, it was a very interesting way to work. I guess that's what you always hope for, right? Is to work with people that make you feel you have some freedom to play, but who also really know, have a very strong sense of what they want to create as well.
Katherine Waterston, thank you so much.
Thanks, Peter Rinaldi.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of IFP, the Independent Filmmaker Project. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.